corazón, mi corazón.
Te lo dije bien.
Permanece a la escucha. Permanece a la escucha.
12 de la noche en La Habana, Cuba.
11 de la noche en San Salvador, El Salvador.
11 de la noche en Managua, Nicaragua.
All right. Okay, so I guess that's working and my voice is coming through too, right? Hello. Okay, so I have both of these. Let's see if your audio is the same.
Well, I got pwned by Pyrrho 314.
Okay, so that's all I'd heard so far. And since I just did this and I had no audio, we'll just make this shorter. But I didn't mean to pwn you. I didn't try to pwn you. People are always saying that. I just had an honest reaction. I thought you were going to be more ironic about it or whatever, and then you seemed kind of sincere, like it was a real red pill thing, and I just reacted to what you said. But as I suspected, this reply says, no, I'm probably not really red pilled, pyrrho 314, at least not like that. So, okay, this pwn statement is sort of facetious, probably, I'm thinking, but fair enough, because I did this hot take react time thing, and I'm going to do it again here, and I don't always do this. I know it's prone to certain mistakes like that, so I'm going to try to be extra serious about it, because I think you're expressing something that's worth listening to and taking seriously. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. I'm a little nervous. Okay, it looks like the levels are good, so Quintica should be happy. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Okay.
I shouldn't have made my video about being red-pilled because I'm not really red-pilled in
you're a little lower
the
than me.
sense that a lot of people think of that.
Here's the
Most
test.
of it's about
There we go.
my just not trusting mainstream media anymore. That's what most of it's about.
Okay, so I'm 51 years old. I take it as a given you don't trust the media. I'm from an era where the media was right-wing and conservative, and I've never seen it change, frankly. Like MSNBC, NBC running, those hacks running the so-called liberal station, I don't think so. This is consensus, and you can see it with Venezuela. They're all like, oh yeah, do something in Venezuela. Of course you must. Fareed Zakaria or whatever on CNN, it's like, it's the status quo. Yeah, you're not supposed to, and who trusts the media? I don't think liberals are saying the media is totally trustworthy. I mean, if you want to watch trustworthy left-leaning media, then you watch Democracy Now!
I regret very much at this point, very, very, very much regret making that video, but I can't really.
You're making me feel very guilty. It's not because of me, right? I mean, it's just that you made a hyperbolic statement.
I can't take it back. I mean, I could delete it, but that wouldn't go over very well.
Well, I personally don't believe in deleting.
Just doesn't seem that the volume's very loud, but it's better than the volume of Pyrrho's video. That I had to turn the speakers all the way up just to hear him. But
well, I don't want to redline it. How's this one? This I'm going into the yellow. Sorry about that. I mean, I just don't know what to say. I said I would be serious, and I'm laughing, and it feels like inappropriate. Inappropriate laughter. Okay. Yeah, I don't worry about production quality that much. But I also don't know. I guess I have good speakers. It was plenty loud for me. I've rewatched it on several computers, and it was fine. But okay. This time, I didn't anticipate your reaction, but because Quintica was bitching about it, I it's in the yellow for me. I don't want it to go to the red. That's when you start to have um, I forget what it's called, but the certain kind of distortion, saturation, right? I don't want that. And you're in the yellow. Let's see,
Okay, first off,
you're in
okay,
the yellow.
I do not
Okay.
agree with affirmative action. I do not agree with quota systems for the way, for hiring or housing. I don't believe in quota systems.
Fair enough. I understand why people would be against that in principle, but I would point out that the idea is that when a certain class of people is discriminated against, that that if you force people to bring them in by their natural percentages for a while, not forever, but for a while, you can, you know, you can rectify the actual situation. So I also see it as a temporary thing. I'm not for it in principle forever, but I have no objections to it as a way of, getting people of color into the Ivy League universities and things like that.
I believe in non-discrimination policies.
So
That's
me
why
too.
I would get upset when, when I'd go to the pride marches and I'd see them up on stage and they were saying, "Oh, we need to make it so, let's essentially add gay people to affirmative action." I'm not down with that, right? That's what I meant by that.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to say is I think that an advantage of doing the videos this way is at least all of your I'm interrupting at places that might be inappropriate or whatever. You never know, right? Um, but at least all of your speech is up here as well. Um, okay, I guess my first reaction is that adding, LGBTQ. And see, I'm a big advocate of the Q. That came out in the 90s, and I thought of all of the whole rainbow is LGBT because also I'm from the 70s where rainbow is the rainbow tribe. It means everybody. And so, okay, this means everybody too in its own way, but though it's a kind of a gender spectrum or whatever you want to call it. But I like the Q because everybody's Q, right? Everybody's, got a little kinky thing going on. The straightest people of all have the most Q going on. So it's just like you're whatever. It's the sort of infinite genders idea, like don't even try to define it idea. And if you get all technical about that, that can raise issues. But I think in general, that's basically what we're dealing with, which is like, hey, this is not a this is not a violent spectrum of things we have to worry about. So why not add, like, in a way, the trans issue and adding that to affirmative action is really important. And as important as it was to add homosexuality to an acceptability kind of mainstream, um, it's weird because just the fact that you could hide that or not hide it, but even just keep it to yourself or whatever, or be, somewhat discreet or, not hide it, but, I don't know, you could maybe get away with something even back when it's frowned upon, whereas you can't really be trans and get away with it. And even to this day, there's so much bias. It's like in John Stuart Mill's On Liberty, right? So your classical liberalism, to which I subscribe, is there. I'm doing what you did, calling myself a classical liberal as if I'm some right winger. No, no, I'm not. Classical liberal isn't right wing. It's on liberty, John Stuart Mill, and it's society that puts most of the pressure on people that inhibits their liberty. So right now, because of people's personal prejudices, you have still a big, um, I've worked in the computer industry where there's plenty of people that want to say like, no, we're cooler than that. It's okay. But even then, there's a kind of tokenism. And like, if you're trans in New York, how much harder do you think it is to find an apartment than normal? Well, from what I've heard, significantly harder. So anyway, I'm leaning towards adding it to affirmative action until such a time as things look relatively equal. Landlords have learned this money's just as green as everybody else's and so on.
Um,
Another thing I want to say is you're obviously really good with production. You really shouldn't be trying to pwn me with how bad my production quality is. I got all kinds of graphics and icons. That's fancy. And then you, on the other hand, know how to set the color tone just right, and you're floating in a black space. And okay, you're better at it. I get it. I acknowledge that. Should not. I know that's a little bit of what you're doing. Okay. Um, I kind of admire it. So far this reaction is I like it. Okay, back to the subject matter. And you were talking about not wanting to be added to a kind of a. Now I'm not trying to mischaracterize you. I'm trying to give an alternate. I hopefully you'll agree. Hey, we don't need to add these groups to people that are part of. We don't need to jump in on something about about victimhood, something about victimhood where we don't need to enter into the affirmative action that other people have done, because really we need to, eliminate that approach or something like that.
there are some things, though. Let's say, okay, some of the mindsets that you see at some of the colleges, some of the activists at colleges, where they're constantly harping about the majority demographic and blaming them for everything, and it, essentially, white guys are oh, that's the original sins. It's the only way I can really put it. It's just no matter what we do, unless we dedicate our lives to certain causes, we're part of the problem, and it's just it,
Okay, so you know how they say immigrants are the problem. If we put up a wall, so many problems will get better. I think what's going on is that white boys, I made a video about this recently. I don't know that I mentioned it in yours, but they're getting a little vaccine about what it feels like to be the victim of racism. And lucky for them, they're not actually going to be held back in life because of the racism of their society. They might worry about that. They might lose a few dates because of that, depending on how they behave and whatnot. And the cost may be real, meaning, non-zero. But they're not really faced with the actual social 24/7 limitation of what you're allowed to achieve of an actual racism. So I think the white guys are overblowing their fear at this whole phenomena, that some people would say that or take that tack, uh, societally. In an individual case, when you run into an individual that's all sanctimonious, that's not really a problem at all, because usually those individuals either are trying to make a real point to you, and you should just kind of, not you particularly, but I mean, the normative, uh, the normies. Um, they should either take the advice, or they should realize, yeah, they're just dealing with some sanctimonious person that isn't really a good person, but they figured out a way to guilt you or to this or that. They'll do all kinds of emotional manipulations, and that should be detected on an individual case by case basis. It's not the sociological phenomena which is really just a little bit of lightweight. Hey, here's what it's like to, you know, everybody thinks you're a rapist. Welcome to having racism, because that's what was going on with black men for 100 years, 200 years. So now you know. That's how I see that. It's like I'm not really worried about it. I think that the white boys should be able to get over it, and laugh at it just the same way they laugh at racist jokes. They're totally able to do that. This might take a really long time if I go at this pace. What the hell am I doing here? It's 15 minutes and we're 2 minutes in. Okay, that's a problem. 7 minutes per minute. 7 times 14, it'd be like, that's doable, an hour and a half. Okay, maybe I'll let you go a little bit longer. And now I'm dedicated to letting all your video play, just because I haven't even seen it. So see, that's a good thing about this style. Okay, I'll try to just listen for a while and let you build up some momentum.
I get so tired of that. I get tired of, I dealt with the kind of guilt from religion when I was growing up. I dealt with that. I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't want to, I can't handle guilt stuff. I don't handle guilt trips well at all.
Guilt's unhealthy. Yeah.
I'm a little shaken up. I was actually shaking when I was watching your reply.
Sorry about that.
So I'm trying to be level-headed here, but I'm probably not doing a very good job.
Okay, so I made it a little bit less than a minute. Me too. And that's the feeling. I don't know. Hopefully it's because there's some real issues that I hit on, that I don't even know what they are either. I'm sort of having the same reaction. So, so you're really you're genuinely struggling with a real life issue here of how to view society, basically. So.
But I don't deal with guilt trips well, and when I see people pushing things that are just like, okay, you're acting just like religious people did in the 80s, I like to call it out. And the thing is, that mindset has spread to so many places. It's spreading to mainstream media. It's spreading to workplaces. Diversity training, for instance. I think there needs to be a certain amount of that, but the amount that it's gone to, someone could lose their job for tweeting something that isn't all inclusive. Lose their job, they're practically crucified.
So in the 90s, I knew somebody who was at a job where their coworker lost their job. Story they told me. Because they were seen smoking a joint at a baseball game, and their boss happened to be there and notice it. So it is bad, but that's the kind of thing that happens because we're in a society where there's no democracy in the workplace and no workplace rights. So if you want people not to be able to be fired for something like that, you need a governmental solution. And if you say, oh, but we don't want government, then that's just the way that it is. People can fire you for whatever. And now we have all these connections, so there's way more whatevers than there ever used to be. And there used to be plenty. Because people used to be more picky, right? You could show up, say a certain thing at work, and that happened. So you kept your mouth shut. All slaves at work, no democracy at work. Democracy 15 minutes every 2 years. Woohoo.
It not practically crucified. That's hyperbole. I shouldn't have used that phrase. This is why I should probably stick with making scripted videos.
I love unedited.
But someone's life can be completely ruined for just stating the wrong opinion. You know.
I do agree with you. I do have some concern about that. I think people need to start just standing up a little bit and being able to say, hey, I learned since then. Or, hey, I still don't really get why that's wrong, but here's why I'm trying to make sure it doesn't mean I'm a bad person or whatever. You know, even standing up and speaking their confusion, like they don't get it. Go ahead and make yourself look like a fool for a year before you resign. Or at the end of that, you could say, oh, I get it now, and don't resign. You know, I mean, people don't need to be caving automatically because of this. Like Al Franken. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, okay, so some 65-year-old guy was a little too touchy-feely. Is it? I'm not sure that was the end of the world. So I don't think people's lives need to be ruined for most of this. But it is a hard call because, you know, got to fight Nazis. That's what pulls the socialists together. It's like, thanks, Nazis. You know, I don't know, it's difficult. I kind of think that if somebody's learned a lesson, then okay. I watched Revenge of the Nerds, and I didn't realize that was a rape scene. I realize that now, and I could admit it. So I don't want people to be destroyed over these things either, but it's also I mean, aren't we dealing with people that are monetizing having these views and are unapologetic in the sense that they still have those views? That's the biggest issue here, is that it's not like we're just talking about ideas people had 10 years ago. The reason they have trouble because of the idea 10 years ago is because of the idea that they still may have that same notion in their head. If they don't, then yeah, we need to start allowing people to have grown and stuff. We've got too many records on everybody. On the other hand, that can't just excuse every embarrassing thing, even for people that are still saying embarrassing things or whatever, if you see what I'm saying. I did not let that go at all.
Because, I mean, as we can see
Really
how
trying
things
now.
like Twitter affects
Coffee.
how that can affect someone's life.
Yeah.
Our society was not prepared for the information age. We were not prepared for this age of having all this information at our fingertips and being
True.
able to spread information quickly and all the tribalism and all of that stuff. Our society wasn't prepared for it. We didn't, so
There's a little book called Future
there's
Shock.
a lot of growing pains involved.
Future Shock, we call it. Future Shock. Did Future Shock.
So, but no, I'm not.
Was it Fluent, was it?
I am not on the right. I've claimed talked about many times. I am on the left. I believe in universal health care. I believe in a living wage. I believe in affordable housing. I believe in non-discrimination policies. I believe that we need to.
Okay, I'm going to rewind here a little bit because I looked up the Future Shock. It's Alvin and Heidi Toffler. So. Yeah, no, I know you weren't those things. That was part of the thing of why I was like, what? This is a lark. But it wasn't a lark exactly, but it wasn't exactly that I was wrong about, wait, this is discongruent. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
Housing. I believe in non-discrimination policies. I believe that we need to ratchet up the. We need to make it so police can't do to the black community what they've been doing. I don't think they should be able to go around looking
And to
for
poor people.
oh, there's a black person in this neighborhood, they don't belong there. I don't think they should be able to do that kind of profiling. Now, if the police, if there's a report of a crime, fine, you do profiling when there's a report of a crime. But if there hasn't been a report of a crime, it just seems kind of messed up to use profiling, right? Stuff like that. I believe in I don't know what more to say on that. I'm very liberal in most areas. I'm
Well, right, and I didn't say opposite of that, right? I said I didn't understand your description of your red pilling moment when you went in deep enough to make it seem like you'd had it up to here with these activist social justice warriors kind of attitude. Now, I get that kind of attitude. Like when I watched that one Princeton girl screaming at the Princeton professor about this isn't a challenging environment, it's supposed to be our home and safe space, I thought, okay, there's a kind of privilege that I'm watching. I didn't like it. I didn't associate it with a movement that's an individual and a certain number of people, and also college kids who, let's face it, are always a little bit annoying, let's just say. So far what I don't get as an explanation from this, or what I think you're mistaken in, is maybe another way to put it, is that not trusting the media is some sort of red pill thing. Look, nobody trusts the media. I saw some conservatives claiming, I forget who it was, whether it was Fox News or whatever, that, there's people that defend anything the government does, and then if the government, you say the government's bad, they get really, really mad and they defend the government. I don't know anybody like that. Everybody thinks the government's crooked. That's why you have such low favorability ratings for so many of the institutions, and not just government. So I'm not really getting that. I personally think that the government is, it's not even that it's a necessary evil. It's an organization. It's like a car. It either runs well or it's not, depending on how good your mechanic is, how much money you're willing to spend to keep it running, and things like that. It's not good or evil. It's a device that you need to travel from one place to another to accomplish things like feeding everybody and having health care.
I'm not a liberal when it comes to gun control. I'm kind of right-wing with gun control, but I've been that way the whole time, so.
Well, me too.
You brought up very good things about Trump.
Problem is, if I get all serious, then people think I'm really stern. If I don't smile about it, then you think I'm being really stern. Well, me too. I like guns too. No, but I like guns too. Now, Trump.
Excuse me.
Trump, what a shithead.
Frog in my throat, so to speak. You brought up very good things about Trump.
And this is not
and
scripted,
corruption
supposedly.
And the
frog in your Pepe the frog in your throat.
Him essentially trying to pay himself and stuff like that. Yeah, you brought up very good things.
Yeah, people don't think about that. Emoluments.
We should be concerned about. Oh, sorry, my mind was just thinking about
his family corruption. There's all sorts of self-dealing that's going on. Literal self-dealing at Mar-a-Lago, but also shit tons.
It's
going to come out over the next 10 years. You'll see. Everybody will see. Except for a lot of people won't look.
Trump has a lot of things that are messed up about him. Mainstream media is not doing a very good job at pointing out the things that are really messed up about him.
That's true. I agree with you there.
Mainstream media is primarily saying bullshit. Russia, 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 Russia.
That's true.
They're also never giving Trump credit when there is something good that he's done.
Gabe, let me stop you there before you go on. They're saying Russia, Russia, Russia. I never, I was accused early on of like, oh, you're a big Russia thing, just because, oh, you hate Trump, so you're gonna love Russia. I know, no, but look, he was trying to make a hotel in Moscow while talking about getting information from people that want the end of the Majinsky Act, which would have to be ended for him to be able to do the hotel deal that he's been negotiating right up to the election. Yeah, that's not legal. That's like what the hell do you think they would be looking for in a case like that? So I do agree though that we've got these problems with the EPA. It's just like when the shutdown. I mean, I'm like posting on my Facebook like the FDA, NIH, CDC. What did I say? What was the first? I lost what. That there's these things people don't pay attention to that are like, this is serious. Yes, we could shut down some government. Okay, there's some trash at some parks. That's bad. That's more important news than what's going on at the CDC or, food inspections. It just, so, okay. Russia, 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 I agree. It's so easy for them to talk about. On the other hand, there actually is something there. Now, in terms of when Trump does something right, I don't know any examples of that. So maybe I'm going to be an example of the problem that you're talking about, which would be fine. I would admit it.
Like I said, there's there's prison reform. There's the
Well, now I follow the prison reform issues, and it's better than you got from other presidents. I think it's light. It's minimal. It's not the kind of prison reform I'm looking for, but okay, I'm just looking for more. I think it's a little bit fake. But even having said that, okay, I'll just admit that's it's not negative. And basically I did acknowledge him for that. I haven't been making that many videos, like I said, trying to get my second wind on video making here. But I know I told friends and relatives here. So fair enough, okay. There was a good thing. Right off the bat, you got me with one.
step up. No, it's not step up. It's anyway. It's allowed people that normally had long sentences for nonviolent crimes to be released, right? And there have been some good things that he's done.
Well, you've only came up with one.
Economy-wise, well, there are a number of good things that have happened as a result of what he's doing, economy-wise, but
I would say the only good thing is he hasn't ruined it yet. But he's done a lot of things that normally would ruin it, but the financial sectors have decided to keep faith, not like divest of the stock market because they don't want to create a big crisis that would hurt the tax cut gravy train and the regulation gravy train. That's my impression. So good on him. He hasn't ruined it yet. On the other hand, we have a ramp that was engineered with the mathematics by Obama and company, and I'm not a huge fan of them. I wasn't a huge fan of Clinton either, but you gotta give someone credit when they bring in the accountants that do the math and can create, a nice linear ramp of improving economy. So good for Trump that he hasn't destroyed that yet, but I don't see the things that he did. He just increased the deficit to give money back to rich people who are already paying the lowest taxes they've ever paid in the history of the United States since it had taxes.
it's at a cost too. And one of the biggest costs is the environment.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's
Totally.
terrible about the
Yeah,
environment.
ridiculously terrible.
There was someone gave me a link
There's no
to
coming back from
an
4
EPA
years of that, really.
article, but
It's gone.
how are we to know that that's really valid, and how did they get that information? And is it just tilted towards his beliefs that humans aren't the cause of increased climate change, right?
Hasn't the climate changed out this it's just gotten ridiculous. It's like we already know that like the oil companies have taken it seriously for over 10 years and made all kinds of, future economic plans and decisions based on it. And, it's like when people were saying, no, cigarettes don't cause cancer. We know they cause cancer. No, you haven't proved it. Rah, rah, rah. I mean, that went on for like 15, 20 years too. It was crazy. They went up in front of Congress and said, nope, we don't think so. We knew they did. We proved they did. The climate change is a real thing. Him denying it almost doesn't matter because he's so much a symptom of like a stupid part of America that wants a stupid wall and shit that, it's like you don't even matter because, yeah, you're like the statistical average. We had all the stupid opinions in America and divided by all the stupid people, and we get you. So you're just a result of that. So it almost doesn't matter. But then again, it does matter because he's the president, and it's another 4 years of pretending. This stuff costs us fucking actual money, right? Money that we could spend on other things. We're going to spend cleaning up after disasters and things that we're not preparing for and we're not avoiding. Well, I'm glad you agree with me in this area. Or rather, I mean, I'm glad that this is one of the areas where, your liberal, or whatever you want to call it, your progressive or whatever, your non-red pilled side, because this is one of the worst things, right? Like I can really totally accept people having a lot of attitudes, but this idea that you don't have to manage the planet's ecology 100 years after you've realized how huge your impact is, it's just a waste of time. It's not even anything but just a huge waste of time.
But what I was talking about with the Covington situation, you were wondering what I meant by
Right.
the Covington situation.
Yes.
Mainstream media put out stories saying that the Covington kids were getting in the face of the Native American and not the other way around. That they were.
No, and then there were stories that it was the Indian guy, but did you watch all the video? And those kids go to their own base football or basketball games in blackface and stuff. There's other histories. There's a video of them, you know, kind of harassing or catcalling or whatever these women and going maga 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 earlier. And those are no saints, those kids. And what I saw was the Israelites talking to those kids, and the kids keep collecting. I guess they were coming to wait for a bus, and then those kids start doing chants and stuff, and they're like 50 feet away. They never approached. They stayed very clear away from the black Israelites. But then this old Indian guy and some of the Native American, was their march after all, came in and aligned between them. 50 feet apart. They came between them 20 feet apart still on either side. And then that crowd came down, and so as far as what I saw, it did look like the high school kids came into the face of the old guy. Now, I do feel a little sorry for that one grinning kid that was right in his face, because I thought, I've been in those kinds of situations, and you want to talk about your heart getting pumping and wondering if you're doing wrong or standing up for your rights or what's going on. That kid was trying to be peaceful. He said afterwards, and I thought so before, but he was mistaken. What really had happened is these guys were provoked by these black Israelites. They're racists, and they'd been attacking the Native Americans all day too, and you guys are no good. The reason the whites took you over is because you worship animals and things like this. And they were doing that to these, you're crackers and you're all going to be school shooters and these kinds of insults. And they kept their distance. But then a line of peacemakers came in. This line of drummers came in to do a hippie kumbaya thing. Not a kumbaya exactly, but a kind of a kumbaya thing of like, we're going to separate. You guys keep throwing these negativities back and forth. We're going to make a line of sound between you two. And it was an act of peace. And then to come down and confront that is to reject peace. So it's bullshit if you think, oh, it was debunked. No, there's two sides to every issue. Fine. I don't think those kids should have their life ruined. Fine. On the other hand, you made a political statement showing up as 100 people with MAGA hats and then, hanging around, kind of engaging with the black Israelites for an hour or whatever. The first group engaging with them was just, 4 or 5 or 10. So a lot of those later kids, they showed up and what's going on? Fine. The black Israelites provoked some bad behavior from the kids. And who's innocent in this? The Native American marchers that tried to divide the two and create peace. So I'm not believing any counter conspiracy that those kids were saints. Everybody has to take their responsibility for their role in the conversation. However, thank you for explaining it. I kind of thought it was something like what you're saying, but I just disagree. That's the overall take there. That's the most apt or objective or whatever.
They were the instigators, and that they were in the wrong. And the way that got reported originally, I mean, people, and I fell for it too. I saw the smiling kid and just thought, oh, he's just terrible. And then when we...
I didn't. I went out and sought out if there was more video, because I've been at a lot of action or activism, marches, and I know the kinds of emotions. So, just don't fall for that kind of stuff. Stop blaming the media and just realize that when you hear a story from one media that's inflammatory, you just need to go elsewhere. And you can't go to one rather than the other. You can't say, oh, I'm sick of those lying Democrats. I'll go to the Republicans. They're liars too. It's a world of lies, man. We've got to sort it out. And one way is just have a lot of information, and then you can use statistical methods to subtract the noise. Because noise being random starts to average out. You can do these signal to noise tricks.
We find out that it was a different story, and it took mainstream media quite a while to admit that it was different than that. But people still bought into this idea that the MAGA kids were just horrible. And
okay, so I see what you're saying, yeah. Okay, so you are right about this because of the part you're talking about. It's just those kids pissed me off a little bit too. But people did overreact, and definitely it was a total lie of like, here's the picture, and that was a lie. Here's the picture. I think this picture of, they were perfectly fine because a bunch of black guys, because here it is. The black Israelites are fucking totally agent provocateurs. That's their whole scheme. They did provoke those kids. Those kids are kind of the victims, and their behavior is, I don't know, it's still got provoked and they have to take responsibility for it, but you give them maybe a little bit of a break. It's just that there was a line of a third party of people trying to separate it, and the little MAGA kids decided that, no, that was the time to come out and come right up against, they never came down up to the black Israelites, right? So, okay, so I see that situation that whole way, but I see what you're saying, yeah. But I don't get the part where that is a red pill thing. I mean, the red pills are saying that. I mean, I don't know. I just am old enough. I remember conservative press. We still have one. As far as I'm concerned, it does conservative, meaning status quo. There's conservatives, as far as I'm concerned, that are fine with people being gay. Why? Because that's not the kind of conservative. Their conservatism has to do more with the lowly people stay low and the high people make more money than ever before. Woohoo. Right? So So I think there's a different division. And when this press lies, well, that's it's always been that way. Does that mean it's okay? No. However, it doesn't make me switch from a Republican to a Democrat, from a liberal to red pilled, from blue pilled to green pilled, from black pilled, from not having a pill. Oh, so emotional. But I really like talking to you. I hope this time has been, you know, I think I'm being nice and everything, but I never know until after, and then people go, "Oh, that was harsh" or something. Um, I, I mean, I do see what you're getting at about why that bugs you. I still don't see the part of how that would filter into, okay, the solution is becoming maybe a log cabin Republican or maybe becoming red pilled or, I don't get that part. You also seem to be explaining that you're seeking for an explanation for the exact thing that you are going through. And I definitely want to give you, room to do that. So, like, I'm not pinning you to you said red pilled. Oh, but you're red pilled, so it means this. No, well, we don't know what it means yet. It's fascinating. What might it mean? It can't mean that you've become an orange hat guy. Um, we there's too many non-orange hats things you believe, so it means something else. So, and that definitely give you a break on let's explore it. I mean, that's why I'm spending so much time thinking about it, because it's like, okay, yeah, there's something there for us to figure out. Both you have to figure out for yourself, we have to figure out what you mean, and then we get to also go like, well, that's not the that's not the approach I would take. And I'm sure we have some different approaches. I'm sure that I will eventually understand what your approach is, and that you definitely have the right to have time and flexibility to sort out the right words for it. Right? Totally, obviously, without any like, oh, I'm sorry I put it that way because now I've got to go over here. It's like when you boats don't go in an exactly straight direction. They tack a little bit, both because they have to, oh, I took another reading from the stars and I adjust, but also because the wind, it's better to go this way for right now. I'm going zigzagging on purpose. So, um, so to a degree that's the point. But also in my last video, then I wasn't entirely wrong for like not taking it all literally. Like, no, you can't be saying exactly this. The words you were using, but the meaning was a little bit different than it sounded based on the words and the meaning of, red pilled and log cabin Republicans and whatnot. They are the best kind of Republican. I'm with you on that, by the way. But still, not good enough.
And I'm not saying that there's nothing. God, where's my wording? That there's nothing negative about a big group of people wearing MAGA hats. I mean, as I said in one of my other videos, when you have a large grouping of people, when you have tribalism, that's something to have a bit of fear of.
Okay, and I gave you a little bit of heat about that too, and now you're bringing up here, and that's a really good point because I kind of feel like those kids weren't particularly threatening. The hats didn't make them particularly threatening, but they do make them a little bit too as a group, enough to see that, like your point and me having to acknowledge. Um, Interesting. Okay, well, definitely just a point for you there as far as I won't even try to mount a disagreement, and I will acknowledge um, that was a part of it. And when you were talking like groups of, thuggish looking youth, guys, young guys do that, whatever. They're not really, most of them, they're just trying to look like tough guys. But you were saying, yeah, but it's still threatening looking, and they're trying to be threatening, so they should, I'm just saying they should fail. And that's a good point. And here it's interesting to put it on the other side. You're right, groups of people, especially guys, but not just, um, with a uniformity of any sort. Uniforms, really. That's where you and I could be on the same page with that video you made on that, is that I would definitely agree that a uniformity, so an actual uniform, but also just uniform styles, um, is a threatening thing. Yeah, as an individual, it's sort of always spooky. And it's like, I don't have to feel like, ooh, I'm really in danger right now in order to go, yeah, but that's a little bit interesting. Yeah. Well, this is some of that jujitsu I was talking about. Coming back the other way with the threatening group being the MAGA kids, acknowledging that. It is a harmless group of little kids. As soon as you say that, it's going to like, yeah, nobody was really threatened. I would say the only overblown thing was that guy, what is his name, Nathan Phillips. He did kind of overblow. It's like, I was worried for my life kind of thing. But he didn't really go that far. And I think it was reasonable that he was saying it was a threatening situation. I realized I'd gotten myself in the middle of two groups, and they're strong teenage boys. He might have actually worried that, there'd be an attack between the black Israelites and them. Anyway, good point. Good food for thought there.
I could understand, even though they're high school kids, I could understand why someone might have a fear of a large group of kids wearing MAGA hats, right? But
I hadn't thought of it, but you're
that's
right.
not the way the story, the way the story was put out was that they were the ones instigating things.
Yeah, it was put out
So
that
that's
they
what
were
I'm talking about.
instigating more than it turned
They
out. Yeah.
media was supposed to be doing their
They
job.
were
They should have
passive. They
gotten
were
more footage that was
Oh.
available. The footage was already.
Yeah, but the thing is, the media sucks ass, man. They anytime you're near a story or you're somewhere and someone gets murdered and you see it on the news, like somebody was murdered behind my house, my landlord, and it was on the news like it was breaking news, and it was like a day and a half later. I'm like, what the fuck? It was just anytime you're around a news story and you see what the news, again, advantage of being 51, it happens every 10 years or so. It's a major news story. Uh, they fuck it up. Just they suck. It's like the dictionary. Some people want to tell you like, well, here's what the word means. Look, it's in the dictionary. Look, the dictionary is for idiots that have no idea what a word means. It's just a starter off of like, I have no idea what, impicanakable means. I'm going to have to look it up. Don't look it up. It's not a word, but you don't know and you like, I just need a clue. That's what the news is like. You have no fucking idea what's going on in the world and you just need a clue. If you really want to be informed, you have to do your own research. And with the internet, it's easier than ever before. Used to be you'd have to go to used bookstores and find the cool people and the old mentor people that have been around and could tell you what books to seek out and the history that you needed to find, and go to be in the city where you can go read the microfiche of old newspapers, and it's a lot easier now. It could be quite misleading because not everything is made it up onto this archive of the net, but it's definitely a lot easier now. So you should be thankful and just start off realizing even your most like, I really trust a democracy now. They don't lie. I can't remember a time they ever got a story wrong, but even there, it's like they're giving you, hey, I had no idea, and they're giving you, oh, an idea, and then you take the words and names and titles that you find out, and I'm not giving you advice. I'm saying this is what I think a person, you plural, in the world has to do, and then you go type those names and ideas and facts and dates, and you research them further. At least if you want to be well informed, and don't think that you're well informed until you've done that. That's my approach. So sometimes I even miss, the mainstream press was a little ridiculous. I saw memes and stuff. I didn't react to them, Facebook stuff, because, I thought it was a little bit of a shallow approach. On the other hand, I do think Covington High School has a little bit of a proto-Nazi problem. I think there is an actual problem with those kids. And like, why does a whole high school of Christian kids going to DC for a field trip protest, wear a bunch of hats that are part of the movement of the guy that fucks porn stars and almost certainly has paid for and orchestrated several abortions, stories say, allegedly. But even if he didn't, he's still a porn star cheating on his newborn wife, affair having, not Christian type guy. And that's how they're all going to decide to do that. So I think there's some bad judgment, and I think those black Israelites provoke that into bad behavior. But I also see your point about the media. I don't see how that should push you even a tiny bit towards being red-pilled. I mean, the fucking media is no friend of the progressives. They're a bunch of fucking liars. They promote every goddamn war. MSNBC, all of them, every fucking war. That's why Democracy Now!, the War and Peace Report, they don't do that shit. But all of that fucking mainstream media and most of the net alternate media, they have a status quo attitude. They push a status quo, and they lie and try to make angles on every story. And all you can do is say, well, they brought up a story, they think it's important, I can research it myself. That's it. None of that should make anybody want to be more conservative. The conservatives have owned the media for centuries. Oh, supposedly it's become liberal. No, there's a certain idea of identity liberalness that they've adopted. They're not liberal. And this Overton window that's being pushed now to include socialism on the mainstream media, it's hysterical. They're losing their minds. But it's weird because somehow this window is shifted, and now they can't help but talk about AOC. So, okay, that was another little tangent there, but God, I love that woman.
Available, but they didn't go with it. They just took the first footage they knew they got and ran with the story. Our media is fucked. But in that video you said that you agreed with that. I'm like, okay, cool. So we're kind of on the same page when it comes to, at least in a lot of regards, in a lot of respects, when it comes to media. We're on the same page. Great.
Yeah, I think so.
I used to be kind of a sheep when it comes to media. I used to, if they'd say something, I just would believe it. Oh, let's look at a few more stories. Yeah, that seems to back that up. Oh, well, in this case, that one doesn't back it up. Well, I guess it's not that bad. When I found out that media was wrong about something.
Okay, that's news to me, because to me, I see you as a person that a first step thing is you're not like some slave to convention, and you're exploring your own personal role in the universe, whatever it is, including allowing yourself to make something you think of as later as a mistake, and you have the flexibility that unique individuals usually end up having to figure out how to. So I would have thought you never trusted media. So I guess I haven't thought about that. So what if somebody starts out actually trusting the media, and then, Well, see, I come from this liberal tradition and liberal media, Jim Hightower, a lot of these people from the more left-wing mainstream, and then into like truly alternate journalism that is honest, but also, opinionated, that, for example, we should get rid of war like Democracy Now! And so, there's always been more criticism of the corporate media from the left than the right. Now you have corporate media like Blaze TV and CRTV or whatever, that they're also corporate as far as I'm concerned, and they're criticizing this other corporate media, and maybe that's in the consciousness right now, and it makes you think that, so the conservatives are the one that realize. No, anybody with ethics, morals, and a belief in the facts will eventually come to realize the media is a bunch of lying assholes. And they were a lot better before there was the profit motive. When they were just doing it, because news was originally kind of like the C-SPAN idea. In order to broadcast, you had to give news, and they didn't try to make money off of it. And then they figured out, basically in my lifetime, hey, we should make money off of this. And we could fulfill our obligation, but actually be making money and not fulfill it. And so that's what happened. And it was a lot better then, but it was also a lot of lying then. It's just it wasn't lying for money. It was still lying because of what they thought would be best for a stable society and what people should believe. So basically, even good media, if you think about like the rise of media and yellow journalism, where they did, they broke lots of stories like how, hey, there's rats shit on all of your meat. Maybe we should regulate this. And hey, funeral homes are ripping people off. This is a big scam of people's most vulnerable time. And all these things that the wave of journalism did, even those journalists, they had access to grind. They're mixed people. They're very driven people. They can have emotional issues about why, what's driving them. And none of that makes their reporting unreliable. No, that's what makes them reporters, and the ones that manage to keep their facts straight. That's what has made them achieve that. But you can't just believe them. You've got to always triangulate and get facts. But on the other hand, we're in an era where some people have used that to be like, hey, I'm saying this lie, and they're saying a bunch of facts. It's somewhere in the middle. No, it's not in the middle. It's over there by the facts. And the facts are not red-pilled.
I'd give them excuses. I'd give them leeway, but I don't really anymore. And that's the main thing that's changed for me.
Good.
So,
good change.
Yeah, maybe I'm not really red-pilled.
No, just cynical.
When it comes to Facebook and people I know on Facebook and some people that I've known for over 15 years, I've seen where anyone who even just questions what some people say, they'll just drop them like that. I've seen them drop friends. And I don't want to be one of these people they drop. So
that sucks. I'm the kind of person that says, oh, they weren't really friends, I guess. But that's probably my callous side. And that does suck, and I entirely sympathize with why you would think that is a pressure or even a legitimate reason to think about, hey, am I going to do something? And also something that might make you mad facing that kind of dilemma. I myself have suffered a life of where it's like I've lost friends. I've had friends that were good friends and friends that were just kind of acquaintances. And that good friend had some hissy fit and said, nobody can talk to that person anymore because we have a problem between the two of us. And so if you talk to them, you're not my friend. And I'm like, well, I guess we're not friends anymore. Why would I do that? This person was more valuable to me as a friend than this other person I only knew a little bit. It's just because I don't want to have a friend that makes that kind of demand, right? So as a result, in the situation you're talking about, I don't really suffer through it. I just like, no, I guess I'm going to lose you as a friend. But I don't think everybody should do that or have that attitude. Yeah, I'm kind of concerned my attitude might be unhealthy. But I'm 51, so I'm sticking with that one. It's worked for me so far. I actually think it's helped, but it seems a little suspect as well. Yeah, and you're, I don't know what the word is. You're thoughtful. You're like sensitive. Like you might like, I mean, it's totally legit if somebody even reacts to just like people they don't know and the reactions those people have to them. So yeah, that's a legit fucked up thing there that people like if you're gonna say some opinion and they're gonna be all insular. But see, I like I like heterogeneous societies and groups, so I would never cut people out of the group because they stand out. It's like more like, oh, hey, come right, you stand out, come right in. That's what we all stand out. And any but person that doesn't stand out, boom, you're kicked out.
Anyway, um,
See, the big
so no
picture's
Trump.
over here.
There's a lot to dislike
Really
about
over there.
Trump, but I don't
Say that
think
again.
I, I don't look at him as, oh, he's a fascist. That's one of the main things that's being said about, oh, Trump is a fascist.
I think pretty
Well,
patchy.
I,
Hates the press. But no, yeah, he's pretty fashy, but it's kind of like lightweight, like that, like I was talking about that racism that's an inoculation. So I'm hoping it's not going to break out into full-blown fascism. But any student of how fascists are, yeah, this is it. This private profiting, talking big, hating foreigners, loving the corporations, saying you're going to clean the swamp, but in reality, you just like, hey, look, everybody, we're the swamp creatures. Okay, so there we probably don't disagree there either, because he's not like full blown. But what are you supposed to do? Wait till it's full blown? Wait till there's concentration camps? I mean, when people start talking about the concentration camps, can we just say, hey, it's just like now is the time to act? And we do kind of have these concentration camps where we have, you know, 10,000 kids or more, whatever it is, that's been separated. Why? Because people are seeking asylum. I don't think history or me are going to look too fondly on that as an excuse for, baby prisons. But I know you don't agree with that, right? That's part of what you're saying. You think he is going too far on things, but you don't see how it's fascist, and so that's my way of saying, yeah, it's a little fashy. Okay, that's one example. I think there's more, and most of them though are just talk because Trump is mostly just talk. So the fact that he hasn't created more damage is because, to a certain degree, talk is just talk. But some talk does fuck things up. Does fuck up an agreement we had with Iran that was fucking 40 years in coming. It was our fault to fucking begin with. It does mean he's fucked up with, and he's fucked up with Iran, and now he wants to make the same kind of agreement with North Korea. Iran's more trustworthy, at least as trustworthy as North Korea. I mean, it's just such bullshit, and it's destabilizing everything. And I'm not even, as a liberal, I'm not that, and a peace activist, I'm not that fond, a huge fan of NATO and its actions over the last 50 years, but I don't want to destroy an alliance that's kept peace in one of the most warlike regions we had on Earth for, centuries, Europe. Let's take that seriously and try to preserve that and things like that. So he's destabilizing all that shit. On the other hand, he's a lot of talk. On the other hand, I think even the amount that he's grifting out of the United States is pales in comparison to what really well organized political machines like the Bushes can do with their billions to trillions of dollars of extraction through the Halliburton contracts and their wars. So we're gonna make it. It's if you want to say where I agree with you, it's probably on. These liberals should not be fucking panicking like it's the end of the world. No, it's more mild than what we dealt with before and before and before and before. It's just been worse the further back you go, and you got to read some Machiavelli and so on. Not that you haven't, I'm just saying. And not that you really have to, but I'm saying it's pretty Machiavellian as you go back in time. Things are getting more mild. He's a more mild kind of fascist, but he has all the characteristics of that movement. It's like that movement is fading in its intensity to a certain degree. Some of us would worry that it would flare up and be intense and violent again, but right now it's mostly this really angry, bitter rhetoric that's just a lot of heat and noise, right? Except for when it isn't. Like somebody gets, driven down with the car. One person in a 300 million person country. I guess statistically, we could just have to deal with that. But it gets you concerned because we know how fascists are when it gets out of control. So it's kind of like, ooh, you've got cancer. Is it, you don't want cancer. Is it really one of the bad kinds or is it one of the kinds you can survive? It's like, well, it's one of the kind you survive. Great. Yay. It's kind of like that. Fascism is kind of like that. Is it one of the good kinds of fascism that we can survive? Then okay. Better than the bad kind of fascism where everybody has to fucking suffer for a long time.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think I agree with that. I think I've said everything I wanted to. Thank you for making that video. Yeah, sometimes I need a slap in the face, So, verbally.
Well, I didn't want to slap you in the face. Thank you for thanking me for making the video. Thank you for making a reply. I didn't really think you'd even watch my video. I was always into replying and having conversations, but these days they kind of changed YouTube for that. So thanks, and I think I understand a lot more where you were coming from in making your heartfelt plea, and I think that we'll have further differences on it, and I will be interested though to further see how you sort out this these issues you bring up, and the sociological sort of standpoint or viewpoint. And as far as there being, if a disagreement or an advice, here's what you ought to think kind of a thing, um, which it isn't really, but is that none of that should lead you towards anything conservative. There's an idea of liberty, and and I consider myself a progressive libertarian. There is an idea of liberty. You will find yourself rejecting all dogmatic philosophies if if you hold to ideas of liberty. There is an idea of progress. Things can be better. The original Republicans, progressives, conservatism, even looking for progress. Things can be made better. We can see that. It's pretty clear. Sometimes it's trickier to figure out, well, but how can I actually make it improved? Because it's tricky. This pulls that and everything. But given time, we've done that too. So there's progress and there's liberty. And the offenses that are offending you, like just the lying, profiteering, slash lying, slash weirdly lying almost sometimes, nature of mass media and corporate media, and even media in general, even volunteer media, there's all these opinions and egos and things come in and have similar effects. Not as bad as when people are just inflaming you to make money, but it still lead to untrustworthy news and stories. What we do about all of that mess is just focus on what real liberty is, real information is, and try to find the facts. This is what I think. Try to find the facts that lead to an opinion you can feel good with while facing all the facts that you can find. And if other people don't like it, then I say fuck them. And that's where we have a problem because, you don't want to fuck off all of those Facebook friends or whatnot, and people with history and who knows, relatives and stuff. And I sort of, it's too late for me. But anyway, thank you very much for your reply. I enjoyed it. Sorry this one was so long, but I figured, okay, I won't speed it up or anything. I don't know how watchable those are. I'm gonna watch it though. I watched the other one a couple times, and I hope to see your updates. I mean, I think it's very, very valuable to share this kind of thinking actually as you reach through something like this. And I'll really stand behind that, even if I think you reach some point where I'm like, that's crazy, don't think that. Um, or I make a joke and it makes fun of you and I have to feel guilty about it or something. Because all I'm saying is if you go somewhere on this journey that I'm like, my reaction is like, nah, that kind of a thing or a mocking or negatives of some sort, that's my reaction that I'm having honestly. But basically, the bigger picture is that, thank you for sharing the process because I really think it's important, not so much what people believe at a particular point. That is important and it'll make historic differences, but what I'm most interested in is how people get to that and how people get through that. And so when you share those philosophical calculations or struggles, lack of calculation, whatever the logic is that you're using or that's available, and you show that, that's automatically a good thing and a service to society, really. I mean, to be a bit grandiose about it. Um, so yeah, thanks very much for replying to me. All right, and thanks for the particulars of the reply too. I think I understand a lot better. And it's a little bit kind of like what I thought you might be getting at, but it does turn out that you're also a little more wrought or seriously like, don't know what to do about this issue. You're kind of more actually wrought and less just being ironic about it. Less teasing your leftist friends with their own dogmatisms in their face and more like actually concerned that maybe that's the dogmatic side. In reality, there's dogmatic people in every one of these ideologies, and you have to separate them, in my view. You have to separate the dogmatic liberals from the actual skeptical liberals that are assenting to a liberal view of life, and the skeptical conservatives that are just assenting to, hey, this is how life seems, versus the dogmatic conservatives, right? There's skeptics and dogmatists, and all of the skepticism is actually able to have any of these kinds of views. The limitations on skepticism is not that you would end up being a liberal or a conservative or any particular view. It's just that certain kinds of arguments, and specifically certain kinds of lying and fallacies, are no longer available to you, because within skepticism we've acknowledged those fallacies and problems, and so there's no excuse for ignoring them and being dogmatic and hateful about your perspective. But right now, I will finish by saying the problem is I think that we are in an era where you don't want to be hateful about your disagreements, but if people are putting babies in prisons, you might have to do something about it. So there's that too. All right.